Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. We'll get to the analysis in just a couple of seconds. You will hear President Trump give his thoughts on justice, on the Department of Justice looking into potential criminal activity. Criminal activity in the form of Democrats going after their adversaries, trying to ban Trump, for example, in numerous states. Well, the Supreme Court sided with Trump there. The Supreme Court overturned the absurd Colorado ban, like I said it would. The Supreme Court gave Trump, or gave the presidency, immunity from frivolous prosecution. Democrats tried to weaken the executive branch. They ended up strengthening the presidency by going after Trump. But NBC News, Trump's legal ally, set the stage for DOJ investigations. On the Benny Show, there was one attorney who could possibly be Attorney General. I think Kash Patel should be Attorney General, but this gentleman seems very competent and on point pertaining to his political ideology. So, New York Post, Trump ally. Okay, so he stated that if the New York Attorney General continues to essentially break the law, that he would then prosecute for federal crimes New York officials, whether it's the AG or anyone else who went after Trump. And this is correlated directly to the fact that nobody trusts media, so NBC News, Trump's legal ally, set the stage for DOJ investigations of adversaries. NBC News never said Merrick Garland, Biden, and Democrats, in addition to New York Democrats, went after their adversaries by going after Trump. They never said that, but listen to Trump, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the basis of what's going on. Hit subscribe, and to my super chat, your support is greatly appreciated.
Guard against the bureaucrats undermining you?
Well, they're going to undermine. Well, I always say, so we have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. I got along great with all of them. I handled them. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we...
By the way, the enemy for within for the Democratic Party was Trump. He was their adversary from within. They went after Trump. Everything that Trump says, whether you Democrats call him belligerent or he's not presidential, everything he says, Democrats have done. So when everything he describes, the way he sees the world is exactly the way Democrats and media and prosecutors in blue states have behaved, acted, have exemplified. So when Trump says enemy from within, Democrats recoil in indignation. However, that's how they viewed him. Trump was the adversary from within for Democrats. So don't get indignant when you hear that from Trump.
We have inside, like Adam Shifty Schiff. Think of this guy's going to be a senator. He's running against a guy that doesn't understand politics at all, Garvey, but he was a good baseball player. But he doesn't understand politics at all. Adam Shifty Schiff, who's a total sleazebag, is going to become a senator. But I call him the enemy from within. When you look at the danger he put our country in, potentially with Russia, with a phony made-up deal that he made up with Hillary and some bad people, that started off as an excuse for why she lost an election that a lot of people thought she should have won, because the polls indicated she might win, and then she got beaten everywhere, virtually. When you look at that, and then they said, it was Russia. They used it as an excuse. And then the fake news picked it up. And while you're on this, let's talk about the single greatest scandal, in my opinion, in broadcast history. 60 Minutes and CBS interviewed Kamala, and she's incompetent. She gave them the dumbest answer anyone's ever heard. So they took that answer out, threw it, or the whole answer they threw out. And they took another answer that she gave to a totally different question and inserted it. And supposedly they did this a number of times. And they got caught. 60 Minutes. And CBS should lose their license for that.
Do you want to know why Trump is nicer, is morally superior, more presidential, more diplomatic, and a better human being than the average, wonderful, highly educated journalist, reporter, editor at all the major publications in this country that devoted every single day, all the cable stations, all the pundits that devoted every single day to lying about his words, distorting his quotes. They're using gossip and hearsay from The Atlantic and other publications. Oh, I should say, I'm sorry, journalism. They're using hearsay, gossip, conjecture, he said, she said. They're using gossip and hearsay as if Trump had actually stated those words. That's just one nefarious type of propaganda technique. Oh, Trump disparaged fallen Americans. How do you know? It was reported. That's called gossip. That's called hearsay. If you were fired from a job based on gossip and hearsay, you could sue. You're supposed to deal with facts and reality. Journalism today is Trump said this. We know because 25 people accused Trump of saying, who cares? You could find 1,000 Democrats tomorrow who said Trump tried to sell the planet to Martians. And they would all be, scholars, former and current U.S. officials. It's a public relations apparatus. That's why nobody trusts media. Because instead of giving proof and evidence, did he say those words? Is there evidence he colluded? They investigate the fantasy, and then they say, oh, he obstructed justice. We would have found out that he actually committed the lie we created if not for his obstruction. So then they go to obstruction. He didn't do any of the things they accused him of doing. However, the people who accused him very likely broke the law. 18 U.S. Code 371, I wrote about that in the Federalist. You can just type in H.A. Goodman Federalist. That's a legal statute when you use your position in the U.S. government to go after Trump. Thank you, Agent Pepsi 1. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I've been telling you he's going to win, but a big part of why he's winning and why he'll continue to win, and Vance is going to go 8 years because Democrats and only have media, and let me get to the point really quickly. The reason that Trump is morally superior to those who try to disparage him and insult him is that Trump doesn't have a public relations monstrosity that goes after Democratic Party politicians. It's the Democrats that have the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Atlantic, Esquire, Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone. They used to have BuzzFeed and Vice. BuzzFeed published the Steele dossier. The New York Times, the Washington Post run hit pieces on every major conservative pundit and investigative journalism on Trump nonstop. Where's the investigative journalism at the New York Times or Washington Post regarding Hunter's laptop? Or all the failed policies, foreign policy, or the attempts on Trump's life, or Biden's failed foreign policy, or all of the scandals that took place during his administration, namely the major scandal of lying to the public pertaining to his cognitive abilities. So Trump doesn't have the luxury of an endless supply of journalists, reporters, and editors going after Democrats. So the same Democrats who call him, the same pundits who call him not presidential or belligerent or boorish or he insults people. Yeah, so if Trump insults people, he's a one-man media machine. He doesn't have the luxury of writing hit pieces, endless hit pieces on his opponents like Democrats do. Okay, the biggest concern of any conservative pundit or any media person in media supporting Trump is an email from the New York Times or Washington Post. Oh, we're doing a story on you. Translation, we're running a hit piece to try to disparage, demean you. It's public relations, and we're going to bat for the Democratic Party. It's nothing to do with truth or journalism.
Come get
within.
Before J.D. Vance talks about Trump's quote just now, when they say that Trump insults people, they ignore that the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Saturday Night Live, social media algorithms, Robert De Niro, all of Hollywood, pretty much every Vanity Fair, Esquire, Rolling Stone, Mother Jones, The Nation. I mean, how many? New Republic? This is a public relations monstrosity that insults J.D. Vance and Trump and Rand Paul and Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. And they insult anyone associated or supporting Trump in any way, shape, or form, and they do so all the time. And so then Trump, they say, well, Trump insults people. That's not presidential. Well, it's not presidential if you're a Democratic president, a president, and you're in the Democratic Party to just pretend. Well, first of all, Biden did not act presidentially. He insulted people, used profanity, said you're not who you are if you don't vote for me, all these things. But Democrats don't care. The outrage machine goes one way. But they have nonstop 24/7 insults, demeaning others, disparaging others through hit pieces. They have journalism that has been leveled against Trump and anyone associated with Trump. That's worse than Trump insulting people. If he insults somebody that insulted him, he's just defending himself. He doesn't have an entire media going after his political party the way Democrats do.
Would a Trump administration use the military to go after people who oppose Donald Trump?
Oh, of course not. Of course not. Look, if you go back to the summer.
Translation, would Trump use the National Guard to stop chaos and mayhem from Democratic Party linked fundraising of people who are potentially part of different organizations linked to the Democratic Party in some way, shape, or form, committing property damage?
Look, ma'am, I'm glad you asked the question because I think it's so preposterous. First of all, the biggest problem that we have in this country right now is that because of Kamala Harris, people can't afford groceries and housing. We've got to fix that problem. That's why Donald Trump and I are running to redeliver prosperity for the American people. The second biggest problem we have in the United States of America is that we've got 25 million illegal aliens, many of them who have committed violent crimes who shouldn't be in the United States to begin with. And by the way, those are the issues that Pennsylvanians care the most about. When you go out and talk to them, you look at the...
This is why he won Pennsylvania, Trump, but the point is, you see that he's not even really entertaining the notion that this is somehow far-fetched or un-American. Democrats created this world. They created a political landscape where Trump was indicted 1 million times. They convicted him of complete nonsense. It was unconstitutional. A state cannot decide a federal crime. The federal government and the DOJ dropped the case. The FEC dropped the hush money case. But see, again, this is why Trump won and Democrats lost. Illegally, if they committed crimes going after him, that's what J.D. Vance is alluding to or will allude to right here.
Polls, we ought to be talking about how to redeliver peace and prosperity for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what President Trump and I are focused on. But look, the media picks up on this question when he makes this observation that we've also got to have law and order in our own country too, because this is an important issue. Do we remember? The media loves to talk about January the 6th. And of course, January the 6th of 2021, if you were violent, if you committed acts of violence, then you should be prosecuted for them. Everybody believes that. But what they don't like to talk about is just a few months prior when $13 billion of damage and 20 lives were lost in the mass riots across this country in the summer of 2020.
Kinzinger didn't shed a tear. Liz Cheney didn't think that was an assault on democracy. Democrats didn't think that was an affront or assault on democracy. Nobody cared because it suited them politically because it hurt Trump's presidency. And the same people who championed civil unrest, social unrest, chaos, mayhem, curfews are the same people who said, my God, look at the law enforcement officials who were injured in January. There were thousands of law enforcement officials injured all throughout the country that summer. And I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated, not the endless property damage and lives lost. You would think that the hypocrisy, the arrogance, the hubris of Democrats to focus on one day and ignore an entire summer, you'd think they would understand how hypocritical that is, but that's not the case. So yeah, Trump and the whole country is very much ready. If there's an organization, like Trump was saying simply, if anyone is breaking the law, and it happens to be linked, in this case, to the Democratic Party in some way in terms of fundraising or funding, if they're breaking the law and trying to commit property damage and they're trying to create chaos and mayhem for political reasons, and they're breaking the law and putting people's lives at risk, yeah, he's going to use the National Guard. What's controversial about that? I don't even know how that is controversial.
And what President Trump has said quite directly is that look, if that ever happens again, if you ever have people who think that they can not just exercise their First Amendment right, but loot and riot and burn down American cities, we are going to go after them, and we're going to go after them hard. We do not tolerate that crap in the United States of America.
So this is a completely different world. Twitter, before X, was a huge advantage to Democrats. That was infinitely worse than Trump ever insulting anybody. Twitter's trust and safety team silenced, marginalized, excommunicated, shunned anyone who opposed the narrative approved by the Democratic Party. That's called censorship. Hunter's laptop, 50 Intel officials lied through their teeth, and they pontificate Trump lies. Democrats have said Trump lies all the time, and yet he won the popular vote, won the Senate, increased the lead in the House soon, and completely dominated. So what's the real story? Maybe Democrats lie so much more than Trump ever lied. Maybe they're so much more corrupt than they claim Trump to be. And maybe nobody trusts media because they know that media is an extension of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris can laugh all the time and engage in word salad. She had a complete media monopoly. They loved Harris. And they loved Biden until they were told not to love Biden. Then they turned on Biden, and then 3 weeks it took for Biden to be ousted. Joe Biden couldn't take 3 weeks of what Trump has had to deal with every single day, every single second of the day for 8 years.
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General, what are you? We talked about how you fix the DOJ, how you bring justice back to this country. When we talk to people, people's faith in the system is shattered. Yeah. Absolutely shattered. We've seen it in your fundraising numbers.
It should be.
So who do you choose? What kind? Do you have a name that you're top on your list?
I do have a couple, and one in particular, but I made a lot of good choices. I got that one wrong. I was very loyal to one because he was the first senator to endorse me. As soon as conflict came up, he ran for the hills. And actually, the second one, he ran for the hills. When he heard that he was going to be impeached, they were going to impeach him. And he was like a different person. I had to get rid of him. And I would say that was the one thing. One of the truly important positions is Attorney General. And I was very disappointed at both of those attorney generals. Jeff Sessions was, I don't blame myself too much. He was some position in Alabama, and he wanted to be so bad. And he was the first senator to endorse me. And again, I was sort of a civilian. I didn't have a lot of people. I didn't know that many senators. And he went to a rally in Mobile. The fact is that we had 72,000 people, so it wasn't that big a shot. But he came to me and he said, I'd love to be Attorney General. And I didn't see it. And then he came 3-4 times, and I said, just out of loyalty, I did it. And he ran for the hills because it's nasty. This is a nasty business. This is a nasty world.
How do you find
and
these
Barr?
steel-spined people
I know
in the future?
Barr was threatened. In all fairness to him, he didn't want to. He was Attorney General. He was a respected guy.
You see, Vivek Ramaswamy or Tulsi Gabbard or Kash Patel, or Elon Musk, they don't need Washington. And Trump doesn't need Washington. Democrats needed media, Washington. Politics is lucrative for Democrats. They live and breathe through media support. But Trump doesn't need media support. He won the popular vote. I knew he would win. I wasn't sure he could win the popular vote because of the negative media support. This is amazing. And so he has to nominate people who will act like Merrick Garland did, but for his interests. This is the political game that the wonderful, morally superior have created. If you go after Trump for nonsense, you better make sure you didn't break the law in trying desperately to imprison him. Okay? Trying to prosecute and indict somebody based on complete nonsense is breaking the law. There's one statute is 18 U.S. Code 371. It's interestingly the same statute they used against him. They knew he wasn't a Russian operative, a Kremlin. They knew he wasn't a Kremlin operative. They knew he didn't commit any record-keeping law breaking regarding the FEC and Stormy. They knew that. You don't think these people are smart enough to realize? Of course they are. Democrats are very smart. The people going after him are very smart. They lack wisdom. That's the difference.
And they said they were going to impeach him. I understand that. I said, I got impeached twice and my numbers went up, which is unusual. I said, it's not so bad to be impeached. What are they going to impeach you? He had no idea what they were going to impeach. But he was going to be impeached. They didn't know what. They didn't know why. It's like they took me to trial. There's no crime. They were trying to devise the crime during the trial. That's how bad it was. But with Barr, and he let me down. He let down.
And then you have prosecutors and judges with direct ties to the Democratic Party, not just the Democratic Party, direct ties to Biden. Then you have a DOJ official who went to New York to be part of the prosecution, specifically to convict Trump. I mean, but they're not backing. This is not, if Trump doesn't listen to the James Brown song, The Big Payback, on continual loop, he's going to do himself and the country a disservice. You created this world. The Democratic Party created this world where you can go after opponents and indict your political opponents. But the thing is, with Trump, he has actual evidence. Like the statute of limitations could have expired, but Clinton's servers, overt law breaking. This isn't like you paid Stormy and it was the FEC, but even though the FEC says, nah, not a crime, the DOJ says not a crime, but it's a law, a federal law that he broke in concert with a state law, so therefore it's a felony. It's like, no. They don't have to create and manufacture and contrive some kind of law that Trump broke. It is impossible and illegal to transfer top secret intelligence onto servers. The Honorable James Comey knows this, and anyone with a functioning brain cell knows this. You don't think people at the Bureau know you can't have servers? It's illegal. What about Hunter's laptop? Like, obvious bribery and graft. Why are these people giving money to somebody who doesn't speak the language? Why is he on the board of directors of an energy company in a country where he doesn't even speak the language? Why? I mean, so you want to say, oh, it's nepotism? Okay, well, what is the business? Trump's kids were in business before he became president. What were these people doing prior to Biden becoming president? Prior to Biden becoming vice president? And how come they increased their wealth? And why did Biden increase his wealth? Like, what, 20-fold? After he became vice president. What was he doing? Did he start a company? Did he own golf courses like Trump? Or did he own real estate? Was he did he have his own apprentice show? Or could it have been bribery and graft? Which was part of that laptop, which they said was a Kremlin information campaign.
Could these mistakes cost you a comfort?
It's nasty. This is a nasty business. This is a nasty world.
How do you find
and
these
Barr?
steel-spined people
I know
in the future?
Barr was threatened. In all fairness to him, he didn't want to. You know, he was Attorney General. He was a respected guy, and they said they were going to impeach him. I understand that. I said I got impeached twice, and my numbers went up, which is unusual. I said, it's not so bad to be impeached. What are they going to impeach for? He had no idea what they were going to impeach. But he was going to be impeached. They didn't know what. They didn't know why. It's like they took me to trial. There's no crime.
To my super chat, thank you. Red Not Blue Pill, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated.
They were trying to devise the crime during the trial. That's how bad it was. But with Barr, and he let me down. He let down our country. He endorsed me the other day, as you saw, right? But he let down our country. It takes a brave person to do it. People don't want to be impeached. They don't want to be indicted by these scoundrels who are much more evil than people. I'm telling you, China and Russia, they're not the problem. We have a problem from within that's really bad. So he let us down. The key to really good government, where we had like Lighthizer and some of these people that were really good, it's the person that's at the top. If you get the right person, it's like magic. It's like in real estate, you put a good super in a building, the building runs well. You put a bad one in, it doesn't. It's the same thing at a little bit slightly larger scale. But we had great people. I rebuilt the military. We did things that were amazing. One of the things that the people that watch your show should know, we defeated ISIS quickly. I was told in 78 years or something, I didn't start any wars. I finished wars. I got out of Syria. I took our soldiers home.
And that's why it was the moral imperative to vote for Trump. That's why I went from Bernie Sanders to Trump 7 years ago, 6 years ago. That's why. When people say, well, why? I remember people asking me before they disowned me or before they, friends of mine who were, hardcore Democrats, why are you voting Trump? I said, foreign policy. They say, who cares? The people would ask me, why are you voting Trump? I would say, foreign policy. He doesn't start wars. He focuses on no military quagmires. Is he a pacifist? No. The rebuttal is, well, he sent this missile here. Like, well, he's not a pacifist. He's an American president. He's the least militant. Again, the least militant. That's why it's a moral imperative to vote for Trump. All these people talking about the planet, God forbid, could end in a second, God forbid, with a nuclear confrontation. What political side do you think got us closer? Yeah, the Democratic Party. That's why he won the popular vote. People don't trust media, and they don't trust the Democratic Party. Every pundit saying Trump lies. Why do you think he got the popular vote? Because the average person, most of the electorate said, yeah, let's say Trump embellishes or engages in hyperbole. He is nothing compared to, the Democrats calling him a Kremlin operative, twisting words, pontificating, judging, condemning people. Nobody cares. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think it's important to have a belief in God. I think that's important. Any religion, a belief in God is important. If you're agnostic, fantastic. If you're an atheist, don't allow religion to become your So don't allow politics to become your religion. But that was the televangelists in 30 years ago, pontificating. The Bush Republicans, the old school Republicans, condemned and pontificated. The populist Trump Republicans, they don't care. They're the least authoritarian. They signed prison reform legislation and are against wars. How much less of a tyrant or an authoritarian and despot do you have to be? People who call Trump an authoritarian lack knowledge of history, lack a basic knowledge of history. He's the least authoritarian president that we've had in a long, long, long time. He doesn't care what you think. He's not going to have 50 intel. He's, if anything, he'll likely reform the intel agencies so that they're not as authoritarian as Democrats wanted them to be. It's Democrats who want to curtail speech. It's Democrats who call words a big problem. Okay, it's the Democratic Party that will destroy and ruin a person's reputation, or liberal Democrat or the far left, because of a tweet from 10 years ago or something. But that's their world they created. That's the authoritarian type of the definition of what an authoritarian is a militant that curtails speech and censors ideas. Who's the most militant side? The Democratic Party. Who censors ideas and words? The Democratic Party. Who had a trust and safety team on Twitter? The Democratic Party. And who was working with government? That was the Twitter before Elon Musk was literally working with government. You couldn't get more authoritarian. But the despots of the 30s, for example, invaded countries. Trump doesn't want those types of wars. He's less militant. He signed prison reform legislation, and he doesn't want to censor anybody. He's the antithesis of an authoritarian. But you have to know something about history. I would go into it, but the algorithm won't let me. You could talk about, you look at tyrants and despots, they enslaved people. They disarmed people. What side wants to disarm people? Oh, that's right, Democrats. What side wants to censor people? Oh, that's right, Democrats. What side is the most militant? Oh, the Democratic Party. Oh, that I should feel sorry for voting for Trump, even though he's obviously the moral imperative is to vote for somebody who doesn't want to start wars. I mean, it's the complete nonsense. That's why they lost the popular vote.
I would have moved a lot of them out of Germany. I was going to move them out of Germany. Not all of them, but I would have moved. We have 45,000. So that's what we do by doing that? We're giving Germany this massive shot in the arm, and then they don't treat us well on trade. But we have a great military, and there's nothing woke about it other than those top guys. I used to watch Milley sit there in Congress and talk about, he's trying to understand this and that mind. I won't get into it, but certain minds, I say, is this guy crazy? But it's one of those things. I've gotten to know a lot of the generals because of the things we did. And we had some unbelievable wins, as you know. We had some wins with terrorists, the two biggest terrorists in the world ever. I get the good ones, and I think I have great ones slated. But if you get the good ones, it's like magic. And we had mostly good ones. You think more about the bad ones. We had some bad ones.
He has a sizable or pretty decent majority in the Senate. He doesn't have the never Trump senators around, so maybe one or but he has, let's say, one or two defect. He still can get any nominee he wants. Donald Trump has taken over the Republican Party, thank God, because the Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld, the good Republicans, the Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, good Republicans, were militant. They were basically the same as Democrats on wars, foreign policy, economic policy. With Trump, you have a complete wrecking ball. Business as usual is no longer there anymore. That's why people like him. That's what I gravitated towards with Bernie Sanders. But Bernie Sanders is the system. He's probably a very good human being, a nice person, a good, grandpa and all that. But he is the system. Why? Because he's used as a tool to funnel votes into the Democratic Party. He knows very well Democrats not only cheated him, so not only do Democrats not want his policies, they were tired of cheating him. They did in 2016. In Iowa in 2020, they did the same thing. And they said, well, we're not going to have Iowa. They railroaded Bernie Sanders so much that they changed their primary because they couldn't keep up the charade. Then they did away with the charade and they said, well, we don't have a functioning primary. Well, actually, Biden won its primary. We're just going to go ahead and install Harris. We don't need a primary. Well, then why even have a convention? Why have any rules at all? You don't even need a primary if you're the Democratic Party. You're going to get people voting Democrat no matter what. If they just say, look, here's the nominee. If it's 2 years, like a year and a half before, let's say at 2028, so 2026, they say if the Democrats pick the nominee, everybody would be fine with it. Why even have the charade? It's so stupid. Why even have a primary? Biden won all of the states. There was no challenge to him. He won his primary, and they ousted him. They removed him, and then they're so despicable, they said, oh, they did it for the good of the country. Then George Clooney comes out and says, oh, yeah, for the good of the country. Why? You mean we had somebody who had cognitive issues for 4 years, and if you brought that up, you were like a terrible human being who should never have been born? Oh, okay. I mean, they just keep on lying through their teeth. Then they complain about Trump lying. Then they lose the popular vote.
There's so much in there. I mean, when I'm rewatching it from having been there yesterday, he's just so honest. And I think that is his strength. He's just kind of telling you what he thinks. He speaks from the heart.
Trump is the most honest politician. He wants a wall. He really does want a wall. You think Democrats truly care about giving... you think they truly care about Medicare for all, single payer, Green New Deal? They didn't bring up any of these left-leaning talking points or policy ideas that nobody cares about in the Democratic Party. That's why Bernie Sanders, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, these people are there simply to funnel. They're like ushers in a stadium or in a movie theater. They just want to direct people back into where they need to be seated, right in front of the Democratic Party, just say yes to everything. So Democrats have zero intention ever in a million years allowing AOC or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren to become nominee. Maybe AOC, maybe, which would be 8 years advance. But they cheated Bernie Sanders. And the most sad and pathetic thing is that he didn't even acknowledge that he was cheated. Could you imagine if Trump had private servers and cheated Ron DeSantis or J.D. Vance? I wouldn't vote for Trump if he did that. If he voted for wars and he accused people of being an operative of another country just because of an intelligence report, I wouldn't respect that, but Democrats love it. That's why they lost the popular vote.
I loved how he compared, these agencies and the governments to if you have a good super in the building's going to be fine. And so he's talking about, hey, I made some mistakes with some of these people at the head of these agencies. I'm going to, learn from that and pick better people. Again, really fascinating that he was very direct. I asked him if he would, declassify.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is when he was convicted, which ended up leading to the momentum. It actually helped. He's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics, Trump. They convicted him of complete nonsense. The FEC dropped the case. There was no federal crime to be combined with a state crime. The misdemeanor related to the alleged record-keeping violation had expired. The statute of limitations had expired. So then they said, well, it was in concert. He was simultaneously engaging in record-keeping violations and a federal crime with the FEC and some other crime that they haven't even named yet. They literally haven't named yet. And so this is right after he was convicted.
Let's bring in the co-chair of the America First Policy Institute's Center for Law and Justice, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, former DOD Chief of Staff Kash Patel, along with criminal defense attorney and federal litigator Vic Bajaj. Thank you all for coming on. Pam Bondi, to you first. Jonathan Turley said this earlier. I thought it was fascinating. Watch.
It's not good precedent, and I think that when people, perhaps some who are celebrating tonight, and the celebrations are occurring all around us, I think that some may look back at this and wonder what we've done, because there's great damage here.
Great damage here. How much damage does this do? How much trust is lost in the U.S. justice system, Pam?
Trace, a tremendous amount of trust is lost in the justice system tonight. We all know that, and this judge has committed reversible error every step of the way throughout this trial. I'm convinced, I think all lawyers are convinced it will be reversed. But, you know,
Kash Patel, Trump, they're all talking about special counsels now that investigate the coordination or possible or likely coordination between state officials, court system, and the Democratic Party. You can't coordinate the conviction of your political rival just based on not complete nonsense. What did this man do? He was convicted in a court of law and won the presidency, took back the Senate, and will eventually increase his lead in the House. How miserably failed do you have to be as a political party indicting and convicting your opponent and still losing miserably?
No, Trace, the American people see through it. DonaldJTrump.com shut down today because the internet crashed because so many Americans were donating. And it's back up and running now, and people were patient. And so people see what's happening around this country and what happened to him. But I fully agree with Professor Turley and what he said. It's a sad day for our justice system.
Meantime, Trump attorney Todd Blanche said this to Jesse Waters earlier.
The district attorney says that this type of case is a bread and butter, that they do these cases all the time. That is not true. That does not happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time in Manhattan, and it doesn't have to happen all the time in any jurisdiction in this country.
I mean, Kash Patel, bread and butter. I mean, this is so unprecedented. It's just amazing that he would say.
I love Kash Patel. I love Vivek Ramaswamy. I love Tulsi Gabbard. Love Elon Musk. By the way, Democrats pretend that they didn't have all of Wall Street and most of the billionaires. Billionaires in Wall Street sided overwhelmingly with Democrats 4 years ago, and they still have more billionaires technically if you want to put a tally or count. There are more billionaire Democrats, and there's more people on Wall Street who voted for Harris. But Trump and more people in the tech industry. Trump just got a greater share than he did 4 years ago.
Say that.
It's shockingly unconstitutional, Trace. It's great to be with you, and I'm here to announce on your show a measure that I'm working with Congress that should be Congress's bread and butter. And I'm calling for the subpoenas to be issued to Judge Merchant's daughter's company, who made $15+ million from the illicit information pouring out of her father's courtroom. I want to know the bank records because money doesn't lie. Yep. I want to know how deep it is and how much of it went to the family and how much of it is going to the family after this false conviction. And then we need to investigate the FEC actual violations that this judge and his family conducted, because he should never have been overseeing this trial to begin with because of the illicit campaign money that was flowing through there, and the unconstitutional due process violations are only the beginning. So America is calling for accountability of our judicial system, and Congress is the only lever that has it, and I'm hoping for one or two brave members of Congress that I'm talking to issue those subpoenas ASAP.
Yeah, and Vic, I mean, the judge came under a lot of focus on this thing. I mean, it was one of those things where in the world of Alvin Bragg, in this case, you didn't even have to have one crime. You could pick of a kind of a buffet of crimes. There were 3 crimes there, and any one of those would get you a conviction.
Translating what you're saying through the lens of a criminal defense practitioner, what you're really saying is there's a violation of due process. Defendants have a right to proper notice. What are the charges? Who are the witnesses? And in this case, the judge allowed witnesses to be disclosed to the defense at the very last moment. Similarly, this judge allowed jury instructions to go to that jury to say, hey, if you feel he is guilty, well, fill in the blanks. We really don't need to know how you get there. just fill in the blanks. It's really comical when you have the frightening sound of a prosecutor who has immense power over the citizenry of that area say it's not force or fear or favor. We just let the law lead and we followed it. The reality is favor was the horse in the lead, and they found a way to go back to statements from 2017. Don't forget, and bolster that underneath a felony charge to bring this case to a very biased court.
Somebody said today that Alvin Bragg wants dangerous criminals protected and political opponents jailed. Cash, would you agree with that assessment?
I'd say just look at the facts. Donald Trump is their political opponent, and they've been chasing Donald Trump since Alvin Bragg was running for office. Him and Letitia James actually campaigned and fundraised off the fact that they were going to prosecute and convict Donald Trump.
They're literally on tape telling the world and bragging that they're going to just sue Trump just because he's a bad person. That's it. And and then they say, well, Trump insults people. You have a public relations monstrosity, in addition to state prosecutors, in addition to court system, let's just say the court systems that are firmly leveled against Trump. They have been for a long time, but he won the popular vote, so game over now, or a different game now.
Letitia James also hired Judge Merchan's wife to work as a prosecutor in her state attorney general's office. So they have completely weaponized the system of justice and done away with the rule of law. And one of the most irreversible errors that I saw occur in this courtroom, violating due process, was this judge gave a jury instruction that literally left the bottom of the envelope blank. It said, you don't have to find unanimously beyond a reasonable doubt what the underlying felony is. You just have to find that you think he committed a crime. That is automatic reversible error, but these people don't care because all they want to do is weaponize justice and take a victory lap.
Pam Bondi, is there a feeling that the Democrats stepped across a line here?
Oh, of course they did. And again, Americans all over this country have been donating. The website crashed, and Americans see what's going on, Trace. You know, you said the bread and butter that Alvin Bragg said that of what he did. That's not true. That's not what that office does. That's not what the function of that office should be. It should be prosecuting violent criminals, the crime on the subway. I believe there was a stabbing just before the verdict came in, yet half of NYPD was there protecting the courthouse, not by choice. And, you know, all of these prosecutors were in there watching the trial. Instead of prosecuting, that should be their bread and butter, violent crime in New York City. Yet it wasn't. It was going after a political opponent, Trace.
Were you surprised by the verdict?
So, anyone who possibly broke the law or possibly coordinated with the Democratic Party and broke the law in doing so, in a special counsel, very likely, well, let's put it this way. Trump and his new attorney general will have special counsels. It's almost 100%, like I've been telling you. You can compare my track record. I'm not right about everything, but my track record to like liberal channels who said Trump would lose, I've been telling you the Supreme Court will continually side with Trump. I've been telling you he's going to win, take back the Senate, keep the House. I was telling you all of this. You can look at the endless live streams I've done. But if you coordinated with Democrats and broke the law in doing so to convict a political opponent, the special counsel will likely want to speak with you.
No, the facts are the facts. And at the end of the day, the facts are what prevailed here.
The prosecution's star witness, Michael Cohen, taking a victory.
The facts are that the FEC literally dropped the case. The facts are that the misdemeanor that Trump allegedly committed had the statute of limitations run out. The facts are that former FEC commissioners stated that even if he had paid Stormy with dollar bills from his own pocket, it would not have been an FEC crime because he would have done so with or without the campaign. So he could buy a suit with campaign money or with his money, and it wouldn't be an FEC violation because you buy a suit with or without running for president. In this case, if you paid Stormy, there are celebrities that do that all the time without running for president.
Lap last night. Former President Trump, his New York conviction is not the end of his legal battles. As you know, he still faces sentencing and appeals, as well as a looming Supreme Court decision on immunity. And then,
by the way, the conviction will be either dropped or overturned by the Supreme Court. I've been telling you that. I told you, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't been right about everything for 7 years or 8 years that I've been on YouTube. But I will tell you this. I told you that the absurd Colorado ban would be overturned. It was. I told you Trump would get a huge immunity victory. He did. I told you he'd win the presidency and get Congress. He did. I'm telling you now, he's going to make those special counsels. The Attorney General will have a special counsel, probably maybe one or two. And it's going to be a completely new ballgame, ladies and gentlemen. The Durham probe was the Durham probe was nothing compared to an attorney. He had Barr, the Attorney General, and the other people within his administration can't be compromised this time around. You think you're going to compromise and intimidate Elon Musk or Tulsi Gabbard or Vivek Ramaswamy or Kash Patel? They're not going to be intimidated by anyone in government.
and there's those 3 other criminal cases. Let's bring in UC Berkeley law professor John Yoo. And I haven't heard your take yet overall on your feelings about the verdict.
It may be that the facts, as the prosecution believed them, were true, but it doesn't matter what the facts were because there's serious legal errors here. Remember how complicated the case is. You've got a misdemeanor about bookkeeping that somehow transformed into a felony because it was used to cover up or enable some kind of other violation that the prosecution didn't really prove and didn't even tell Trump until the jury instructions. I think that alone is grounds for reversal. But I think the worst thing is the damage that this is going to do to our political and constitutional system, because the more frivolous, the weaker the kind of case that you can bring against a president now, the more that this invites further prosecutions of presidents. And presidents are now going to have to worry about their legal liabilities and getting prosecuted by people years later when they're in the middle of making some of the most difficult decisions on behalf of the country.
Wait a second. So let's just say President Obama, he hasn't been president, President Bush has been president for a long time. A local prosecutor could reach back and charge them with something now?
Oh, yes. And I think it's even worse than that. I think it's almost that now that this precedent has been set, Republican DAs are going to have to go after Democratic presidents in order to try to repair this violation of norms, because otherwise this has succeeded, right? You've got a partisan elected.
The only thing the people who went after Trump respect is the type of behavior they leveled against Trump. Let's be as algorithmically friendly as possible. They don't respect, they want Trump to be presidential, but really they'll respect if Trump treats them the way they treated him. That's the only way to get to get some semblance of what we had before Democrats ruined this. They completely. There was a time when you'd have a Republican and a Democrat, and okay, one lost, one was victorious, and you just moved on. When was the last time a Republican investigated an incoming Democrat because that person was installed by another government? Well, they did that with Trump, and there wasn't a peaceful transfer of power from Obama to Trump. It wasn't peaceful. It was vicious and vile, and they accused him of being an operative of another country. They had zero evidence.
DA in a city in Manhattan, inalterably opposed to Donald Trump. The guy campaigned on prosecuting Trump, and he's now succeeded. in trying to harm President Trump in running for office. If Republicans don't retaliate in the same way, the Democrats are just going to keep doing it to every candidate. There's nothing to stop
Could it help
them.
repair things if, I know that's unlikely, but I'm just going to throw it out there, everybody, if Governor Hochul, maybe at the request of President Biden, were to pardon President Trump at this moment? Would it matter?
I think the best thing to happen were actually for a court of appeals to immediately intervene and say, right, the law was wrong.
And what do you mean by
here.
immediate?
Judge
How soon
Merchan
could that
got it
happen?
wrong. Well, I think that the Todd Blanche and his attorneys.
So, at a certain point, the federal government will step in and say, okay, here are all the things that you did that were anomalies. And oh, by the way, you are linked to this fundraising, to that fundraising, to this political action committee, to that political action committee. I mean, if Trump had, if there was a, let's say, it was a Trump-appointed judge, which Democrats go after all the time in Florida. But let's say there's a Florida judge or a judge in Ohio appointed by Trump who had a family member that worked with a political action committee that gave money to Trump. He donated to Trump. Could you imagine Democrats and media would say, my God, all his political allies, he's using the system to go after his opponents. But when it's the other way around, NBC News, Trump's legal allies, set the stage for DOJ investigations of adversaries. But everyone knows this is hypocritical. They're not, NBC News isn't fooling anybody. They know that they'll run the headline that favors the Democratic Party. When Trump goes after them, he's going after his adversaries. When they go after him, it's about the rule of law. And 50 experts have come out saying it's totally valid. And so they understand the double standard. Everyone understands. Everyone is tired of the double standard, but the Democrats don't care. They're so invested. It's their religion now. There's a lot of people who are atheists who have a new religion called politics. Okay? There are people who, the most delusional among us are the people who just got interested in politics in 2016 after Trump won. Because they don't realize what the New York Times and Washington Post was in 2014, in 2012, in 2008. You know, they were still in 2000. I mean, you know what? Media gravitated towards Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld 20 years ago. So there's a back and forth. But they were still more apolitical. Even though they were pushing for the endless quagmires, there was still some semblance. They didn't treat Democrats in the same manner as journalists treat Republicans now. Anyway, hit subscribe, people. I love you. God bless you. To my super chat, thank you. John Lelaine, hello. If Trump doesn't eliminate threat, he will take. I agree. Still was he needs. Yep. We did it, John. We did it. John Lelaine. Related to the great Jack LaLanne, who is, it's his son. John, thank you so very much. And like I said, Jack LaLanne is it's a hero of mine and so many millions of people throughout the world. John LaLanne, thank you. And I agree with him. I think that they'll go after, I think that Trump will act in a reciprocal manner. I think he'll act in a reciprocal manner. I'll just say that. John, thank you so very much. John LaLanne, thank you so much. To my super chat, thank you. God bless you all. John and Nico, I didn't see. Nico, I apologize. I didn't see that. There's a bunch. Red, not blue pill. Thank you again. Ben A, I didn't see. Ben, thank you, Ben. Greatly appreciate it. To my super chat, the people I didn't see, I want to apologize. Thank you so very, very, very much. Thanks, everybody. God bless. I will see you tomorrow. I should have a live stream somewhat early